The great chamber of the Galactic Council was a void of polished obsidian, a starless night given form and purpose. Light, a scarce and precious commodity here, emanated not from crude luminaries but from the very beings who occupied the tiered platforms, their bioluminescent skins and crystalline carapaces casting a perpetual, shifting twilight. At the heart of this cavernous space, a singularity of shimmering data coalesced, a holographic sphere displaying the ever-shifting borders and energy signatures of 1,000 star systems. It was a map of power, of life, of fear, and for the first time in millennia it pulsed with an unnerving, rhythmic beat, a new and unwelcome rhythm in the ancient symphony of the cosmos. The source of this galactic arrhythmia was a single, insignificant point of light, a star system on the far edge of the Orion Arm, a place the star charts had long dismissed as a cosmic backwater, home to a pre-spacefaring civilization of bipedal mammals. Now, that insignificant point of light was a beacon of terror, a silent testament to a power that had emerged from the darkness with unnerving speed and inexplicable grace. High Chancellor Valen, a being of living stone whose thoughts moved with the deliberate slowness of tectonic plates, surveyed the assembled delegates. His form, a testament to the patient artistry of 1 billion years of evolution, was immobile, yet his consciousness, a vast and intricate network of crystalline logic, swept across the chamber, tasting the fear, the anger, the confusion that permeated the rarefied atmosphere. He saw the shimmering, gelatinous forms of the Cygnian emissaries, their internal constellations of light flickering with anxiety. He registered the rigid, insectoid posture of the Cathar warlords, their mandibles clicking in a silent chorus of aggression. He felt the cold, calculating curiosity of the silicate minds from the Andromeda cluster, their emotionless gaze fixed on the pulsating anomaly on the star map. They were all here, the great and the powerful, the ancient and the wise, the brutal and the cunning, and they were all united in a single, paralyzing emotion, utter, unadulterated dread. The cause of their collective terror was not an invading horde, not a stellar cataclysm, not a plague that swept through the hyperlanes. It was a message, a single, simple message broadcast on a frequency that should not have existed, using a modulation that defied every known law of physics. The message was from the humans, and it had been an invitation to witness, an invitation to understand. But to the assembled powers of the Galactic Council, it was a threat, a declaration of power so profound, so absolute, that it had shattered the delicate balance of the galaxy. The secret technology they possessed, the source of their impossible broadcast, was not merely a new form of communication. It was a key to a door they had long believed sealed, a door that led to a realm of cosmic understanding that had been the exclusive domain of the progenitors, the mythical first civilization that had seeded the galaxy with life and then vanished without a trace. "They mock us," a voice rasped, the sound like grinding stone. It was Warlord Xyler of the Cathar, his chitinous exoskeleton shimmering with barely suppressed fury. "They flaunt their stolen power, a trinket they have unearthed from the ruins of their own insignificant world, a toy they do not comprehend." He gestured with a bladed appendage toward the holographic sphere where the human homeworld, Earth, glowed with an innocent azure light. "We should crush them. Erase them from the star charts before they unleash a catastrophe that will consume us all." A wave of assent rippled through the chamber, a chorus of clicks, chirps, and subsonic hums. The Cathar were a species of warriors, their culture forged in the crucible of 1,000 wars. Their solution to any problem was invariably the application of overwhelming force. But this time, their simplistic approach was met with a dissenting voice, a soft, melodious chime that cut through the martial fervor like a beam of starlight. "And what if they are not mocking us, Warlord?" The speaker was Lyra, the Cygnian emissary, her gelatinous form shimmering with a gentle, calming luminescence. "What if they are sharing? What if this is not a threat but an offer of enlightenment?" Her voice, a complex harmony of resonant frequencies, washed over the assembled delegates, a soothing balm on their frayed nerves. "We have all felt the disturbance, the subtle shift in the fabric of spacetime. It began subtly, a mere whisper in the cosmic background radiation, but it has grown in intensity, a symphony of creation emanating from the Sol system. This is not the work of a primitive species playing with a progenitor artifact. This is something more." Valen, his stone-like form a silent anchor in the swirling currents of debate, considered Lyra's words. The Cygnians were a species of empaths, their consciousnesses intertwined in a collective tapestry of shared emotion. They were the diplomats, the peacemakers, the conscience of the council, but even their inherent optimism was tinged with a deep-seated unease. He turned his attention back to the holographic sphere, to the pulsating beacon that was Earth. He accessed the Council's archives, a repository of knowledge spanning eons, and projected a stream of data into the sphere. Images flickered to life, a visual history of humanity. Primitive cities of stone and wood, ironclad warriors clashing on muddy fields, the first hesitant steps into the void, clumsy rockets spewing fire and smoke. They were a young species, a chaotic species, a species prone to self-destruction. Their history was a litany of wars, of famines, of plagues. They had poisoned their own world, slaughtered each other with a savagery that was almost Cathar-like. And yet, in the span of a few centuries, a mere blink of an eye in the grand cosmic timescale, they had leaped from primitive barbarism to a level of technological sophistication that was, to put it mildly, impossible. The Council had been observing them, of course, covertly. The Prime Directive, a non-interference policy that had been the cornerstone of galactic law for millennia, had been strictly enforced. But the reports from the observation outposts had grown increasingly strange. Tales of impossible feats of engineering, of medical miracles that defied all known biological principles, of a sudden, inexplicable surge in human intelligence and creativity. And then, the message. A message that had bypassed every known communication technology. A message that had been received simultaneously by every member of the Council. A message that had been whispered directly into their minds. "We have analyzed the transmission," a cold, precise voice stated, the words devoid of any emotion. It was the silicate delegate, its crystalline form a perfect geometric lattice. "The modulation is quantum-entangled. Each particle of the message is linked to a corresponding particle at the source, instantaneously transmitting information regardless of distance. It is a technology that should not be possible. It violates the principles of causality. It is magic." The word hung in the air, a blasphemy in this chamber of logic and reason. Magic. The silicates were a species of pure intellect, their minds a vast, interconnected network of crystalline processors. They did not believe in magic. They believed in data and equations and the immutable laws of the universe. And yet they had used the word. Magic. The fear in the chamber intensified, a cold, creeping dread that seeped into the very foundations of their understanding of the cosmos. Valen, his ancient mind sifting through millennia of memories, recalled a legend, a myth from the dawn of the galaxy. A tale of the progenitors of their final, desperate act to preserve their knowledge, their wisdom, their very essence, from a threat that was even then consuming the stars. They had, the legends said, encoded their legacy not in stone or data, but in the very fabric of life itself, a hidden potential, a dormant seed planted in the genetic code of 1,000 nascent species, waiting for the right conditions to bloom. And now, it seemed, the seed had bloomed on Earth. He focused his consciousness on the human homeworld, a tiny blue marble in the vast, unforgiving darkness of space. He saw their cities, sprawling metropolises of light and steel, their art, a vibrant tapestry of color and emotion, their science, a relentless quest for knowledge. He saw their flaws, their contradictions, their capacity for both great good and great evil. And for the first time in his long existence, Valen, the wise, the ancient, the unshakable, felt a flicker of something akin to awe. The debate raged on, a storm of accusations, of theories, of proposals. The Cathar demanded a preemptive strike, a fleet of world killers to silence the human threat before it could fully awaken. The Signians pleaded for caution, for diplomacy, for an attempt to understand this new and unexpected development. The Silicates, ever the pragmatists, suggested a more subtle approach, a covert operation to steal the human technology, to dissect it, to understand its secrets. But Valen knew that none of these options would suffice. The humans were not a problem to be solved, a threat to be neutralized. They were a new variable in the cosmic equation, a variable that had the potential to change everything. He raised a hand, a gesture that sent a ripple of silence through the chamber. His voice, when it came, was not a sound, but a direct telepathic projection, a wave of pure thought that washed over every mind present. "We will accept their invitation," he declared, his words carrying the weight of ages. "We will go to Earth, we will witness, we will understand, and we will do so not as conch. Errors, not as thieves, not as supplicants, but as equals. For it is clear that humanity, in its own unique way, has finally earned its place among the stars." The silence that followed was profound, a silence born not of agreement, but of stunned disbelief. The great and powerful of the Galactic Council, the masters of 1,000 worlds, were going to visit a backwater planet inhabited by primitives who had stumbled upon a power they could not possibly comprehend. It was a preposterous notion, a gamble of unprecedented proportions. But in the depths of their collective consciousness, a single terrifying thought took root. What if Valen was right? What if humanity was not an anomaly but the next stage of galactic evolution? And what if the fear they felt was not the fear of the unknown, but the fear of their own obsolescence? The holographic sphere continued to pulse, a silent, rhythmic heartbeat, the harbinger of a new age, an age that would be defined not by the clash of empires, but by the quiet, terrifying, and awe-inspiring dawn of humanity. The journey to the Sol system was a silent pilgrimage. A flotilla of ships, a diverse collection of organic, crystalline, and metallic vessels, slipped through the folds of hyperspace, their occupants a microcosm of the galactic community. There were the Cathar, their warships bristling with weapons, their minds a maelstrom of suspicion and aggression. There were the Signians, their living ships a symphony of light and color, their hearts filled with a fragile hope. There were the Silicates, their geometric vessels a testament to pure logic, their processors tirelessly analyzing every scrap of data about the enigmatic humans. And at the head of this disparate fleet was Valen's own vessel, a moon-sized ship of living stone, a silent, patient observer on a journey into the unknown. As they approached the Sol system, their long-range sensors began to pick up nothing. No massive energy signatures, no orbital defense platforms, no fleets of warships guarding the human homeworld. The system was quiet, deceptively so. The Cathar warlords saw this as a sign of weakness, of a primitive species that had foolishly revealed its greatest secret without the means to defend it. The Signians interpreted it as a sign of peace, of a species that had no need for the crude instruments of war. The Silicates, as always, reserved judgment, their minds a whirlwind of probabilities and calculations. Valen, his consciousness extending far beyond the confines of his ship, felt the quietness as well. But it was not an empty quietness. It was a watchful quietness, a calm before a storm. He focused his senses on Earth, a shimmering jewel of blue and white against the black velvet of space. He could feel the life on its surface, the teeming billions of human minds, a vast, chaotic chorus of thoughts, of dreams, of fears. But there was something else, something new, a coherence. A unity of purpose that had been absent in all their previous observations. It was as if the entire species had awakened. As they entered the inner system, they were greeted not by a military escort, but by a single, small, unarmed vessel. It was a sleek, elegant craft, its hull a seamless expanse of a material that shimmered with an iridescent light, a material that seemed to absorb and reflect the starlight in a way that defied the known laws of optics. A single message was broadcast on all frequencies, a simple, clear, and calm voice speaking in the universal language of the Council. "Welcome to the Sol system. We have been expecting you." The voice was human, and it was devoid of any fear, any arrogance, any of the chaotic emotions that had characterized their species for so long. It was a voice of quiet confidence, of profound understanding. It was the voice of a species that had come into its own. The Council fleet, a collection of some of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, came to a halt, their crews a mixture of awe and apprehension. The small human vessel approached Valen's ship, its size a stark contrast to the massive stone Leviathan. An invitation was extended, a request for the Council delegates to board the human ship and be escorted to a meeting on Earth's moon. The Cathar warlords protested, demanding that the humans come to them, that they show proper deference to the established powers of the galaxy. But Valen, his ancient mind sensing a pivotal moment in galactic history, overruled them. They would go to the humans. They would meet them on their own terms. The interior of the human ship was as surprising as its exterior. It was not a machine of metal and wires, but a living, breathing space. The walls were a soft, bioluminescent material that pulsed with a gentle light. The air was filled with the scent of growing things and the soft, melodious sound of music. The humans who greeted them were not clad in armor or uniforms, but in simple, flowing robes. They were of all shapes and sizes, their faces a tapestry of different ethnicities, a testament to the chaotic diversity of their species. But there was a common thread that united them all, a sense of profound peace, of deep, unshakable calm. They were led to a central chamber, a circular room with a transparent dome that offered a breathtaking view of Earth. A single human stood in the center of the room, a woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. She introduced herself as Alara, and she was, she explained, a consensus. Not a leader, not a ruler, but a focal point for the collective consciousness of humanity. "We understand your fear," she said, her voice a gentle melody. "You have seen what we have become, and you do not understand it. You see our technology, our abilities, and you see a threat. But you are mistaken. What you see is not a weapon, it is a gift. She raised a hand, and the dome above them shimmered, the view of Earth replaced by a swirling vortex of light and color. It was a representation of the universe, not as a collection of stars and planets, but as a single, interconnected consciousness. A symphony of life, of thought, of existence. For millennia, we were a species at war with itself, Alara explained, her voice filled with a quiet sadness. We were divided by fear, by greed, by ignorance. We were on the verge of self-destruction, but then we found it. The legacy, the inheritance of the progenitors. She gestured to the swirling vortex of light. It was not a technology, not a machine. It was a key that unlocked a door within our own minds, a key that allowed us to hear the music of the universe, to see the interconnectedness of all things. It allowed us to evolve. Warlord Xyler, his mandibles clicking with impatience, stepped forward. This is meaningless prattle. You speak of music and light, of gifts and legacies, but we have seen the power you wield. We have felt the disturbance in space-time. You have rewritten the laws of physics. What is this, technology? Where did you find it? Alara smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. We did not find it, Warlord, we became it. The technology you speak of is not a device. It is us. Our minds, our consciousness, our very being. We have learned to harmonize with the universe, to bend the fabric of reality with the power of our collective will. The delegates were stunned into silence. This was not a stolen progenitor artifact. This was something else entirely, something far more profound and far more terrifying. The humans had not just discovered a new technology. They had become a new form of life, a species that could manipulate the very foundations of the cosmos with the power of thought. You fear that we will use this power to conquer, to destroy, Alara continued, her gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. But you do not understand. To one who can hear the symphony of the universe, the thought of creating a single note of discord is abhorrent. We have no desire for conquest, for empire, for power over others. We desire only harmony, and we wish to share this gift with you. She extended her hand, and from her palm a single, shimmering seed of light emerged. This is the key, the same key that unlocked our own potential. It is not a weapon. It is an invitation to join us in the great symphony of existence. The Cathar warlord recoiled, his bladed appendages raised in a defensive posture. A trick, a Trojan horse to enslave our minds. But Lyra, the Cygnian emissary, stepped forward, her gelatinous form shimmering with a hopeful light. She reached out a pseudopod and gently touched the seed of light. A wave of ecstasy washed over her, a torrent of pure, unadulterated joy. Her internal constellations of light flared, a supernova of emotion. It is beautiful, she chimed, her voice filled with a wonder that transcended words. The music, the harmony, I can feel it all. One by one, the other delegates approached, their fear warring with their curiosity. The silicates, their logical minds struggling to comprehend this new, impossible reality, extended a crystalline finger and touched the seed. Their perfect geometric forms flickered, their internal processors overwhelmed by a flood of data that was not data, of information that was not information, but pure, unadulterated truth. Even Valen, the ancient, the wise, the unshakable, felt a tremor of something new, something he had not felt in a billion years of existence. He approached the human woman, his stone-like form a stark contrast to her fragile, organic beauty. He reached out a hand, and as his fingers brushed against the seed of light, he saw it. He saw the universe not as a collection of cold, empty spaces between stars, but as a single, living, breathing entity. He saw the interconnectedness of all things, the grand, cosmic dance of creation and destruction. He saw the progenitors not as gods, but as gardeners planting the seeds of consciousness throughout the galaxy, waiting for them to bloom. And he saw the humans not as a threat, but as the first flower, the first of many. The fear in the chamber did not vanish. It was too deeply ingrained, too ancient a part of their collective psyche. But it was transformed. It was no longer the fear of the unknown, but the fear of the known. The fear of a universe that was far grander, far more complex, and far more beautiful than they had ever dared to imagine. The council returned to their ships, the seed of light now a glowing orb in the center of the great chamber, a silent testament to the dawn of a new age. The Cathar were still suspicious, their warrior instincts screaming at them to reject this gift. But even they could not deny the truth of what they had seen, of what they had felt. The Cygnians were in a state of euphoric bliss, their collective consciousness already beginning to harmonize with the music of the universe. The Silicates were in a state of reboot, their logical minds struggling to process a paradigm shift of such monumental proportions. And Valen was at peace. For the first time in his long, lonely existence, he felt a sense of hope. The galaxy was not a cold, dark, and empty place. It was a garden, a symphony, a work of art in progress. And humanity, the chaotic, the unpredictable, the beautiful, the terrifying, was the first note in a new and magnificent song. The flotilla turned to leave, their mission of confrontation transformed into a pilgrimage of enlightenment. But as they prepared to enter hyperspace, a new message arrived. Not from the humans, not from the Council, but from somewhere else, somewhere beyond. It was a simple message, a repeating sequence of prime numbers, a clear and unmistakable sign of intelligent life. But it was not the content of the message that sent a chill down the spines of every being in the fleet. It was the source. The message was coming from outside the galaxy, from the vast, dark, and empty space between the galaxies, a place where life, as they knew it, should not exist. Ilara, the human consensus, appeared as a holographic projection on the bridge of Valen's ship. Her face was serene, but her eyes held a new and unfamiliar emotion. Not fear, not sadness, but a profound sense of urgency. "It has begun," she said, her voice a soft, somber whisper. "The reason the progenitors left, the reason they planted the seeds, a threat is coming, a threat that consumes not worlds, not stars, but reality itself. A silence that seeks to extinguish the music of the universe." The holographic sphere in the great chamber flickered, the star map replaced by a new image. A vast, dark, and all-consuming emptiness slowly, inexorably encroaching on the edge of their galaxy. A void, a silence, an end to all things. The delegates of the Galactic Council, the great and the powerful, the masters of 1,000 worlds, looked at the encroaching darkness, and then at the glowing orb of light in the center of their chamber, the gift from the strange, unpredictable, and now indispensable humans. And in that moment they understood. The age of empires was over. The age of division was at an end. The petty squabbles, the ancient rivalries, the fear and the suspicion, they were all meaningless in the face of this new existential threat. The humans had not come to conquer them. They had come to save them, to unite them, to prepare them for the war that was to come. A war not for territory, not for resources, but for the very soul of the universe. Valen looked at the image of the encroaching void, and then at the faces of his fellow delegates, a tapestry of a dozen different species, a dozen different cultures, all united in a single, terrifying, and yet strangely hopeful purpose. He looked at the human woman, her face a mask of serene determination. And for the first time in a very, very long time, he felt something that was not the slow, deliberate, and unchanging certainty of stone, but the quick, warm, and vibrant pulse of life. The symphony had begun, and the humans, the strange, chaotic, and beautiful humans, were the conductors. The rest of the galaxy, the ancient, the wise, the powerful, had a choice to make, to join the orchestra or to be consumed by the silence. The choice, he knew, had already been made. The fear was still there, a cold, hard knot in the center of their being, but it was no longer a paralyzing fear. It was a motivating fear, the fear of a universe without music, without light, without life. A fear that would unite them, that would strengthen them, that would forge them into a single, unbreakable shield against the coming darkness. The great experiment of the progenitors had finally borne fruit, and the harvest, it seemed, would be a war at the end of all things.